Ukraine. Once again, patriotic songs are being heard. The rows of graves are lengthening. The fear of a nuclear strike has returned, and people are talking in kitchens in half-whispers. People were expecting this war. British and American intelligence warned it was going to happen, yet even so, hardly anyone believed that in the 21st century a major state, a member of the UN Security Council, would up and invade a neighboring country with large army units comprising some 250,000 people to try to seize its territory and depose the lawful government. It was as if we were still in the depths of the 20th century, or perhaps more accurately, the 15th or 16th centuries. Europe had seen nothing like this since 1945. If we look a little wider, we can remember only Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait in August 1990. The war that Russia started in Ukraine in 2022 is a massive geopolitical rift and has signaled the collapse of the whole international security system. It is a tragedy for Ukraine, but also a disaster for Russia, which has been torn away from the global community, and now the country is in freefall. No one can yet predict the scale of this collapse. We are tumbling downwards along with the avalanche, desperately trying to stay on top of it so that we do not get buried alive. There is a great temptation to put this down to the madness of one man, who stamped on the edge of a dangerous cliff and set off this avalanche. Or to blame the Russian elite, who are mired in a swamp of resentment and an inferiority complex. We could just call it all Putin's war, or the post-empire syndrome, but that would be retreating from my objectivist view of history. To use another phrase from Shakespeare, this book is an attempt to find some method in this madness, to find some sort of legitimacy in this disaster, to fit it into the logic of Russian history, into the phases of the life and death of the Russian Empire, into the structures of Russian politics, society, and the mass consciousness. In other words, it is an attempt to discover the objective nature of this war. This has been long prepared for, breaking through, rather like the mole, in the fullness of time, and bursting out as Putin's state unleashing the largest and bloodiest slaughter seen in Europe since the Second World War. 2. War has always been a way of life for the Russian state, its very raison d'etre. The state arose at the dawn of the modern era on the eastern edge of Europe, squeezed between Lithuania and the Tatars, as aptly put by Marx. It had constant battles with the expanding empires of the West on one side and with the horsemen of the Eurasian steppe on the other. Looking westwards, the state's principal task was predominantly one of defense. For centuries, it had to beat back attacks by European armies. In the 17th century, there were the Poles and the Lithuanians. It was the Swedes in the 18th. Napoleon came in the 19th, followed by more French invaders and the British in Crimea. At the start of the 20th century, Germany and Austria attacked, and then Hitler invaded in the middle of the century. All of this helped to form what the 19th century Russian historian Vasily Kluchevsky described as the combative order of the state, boyovoye strogosudarstva, a state always geared for war. As far back as the 18th century, Russia was forced to create a defensive line that stretched for over 2,000 kilometers from the Black Sea to the Baltic. This was made up of a double line of forts placed a day's march from each other, but this still failed to prevent further invasions. As a result of these wars, Russia was the only one of the early empires of the modern era that survived a clash with the West, while all of the others, the Mesoamerican empires of the Aztecs and the Incas, those of the Safavid dynasty in Persia, and the Great Moguls in India, the Qing dynasty in China, and the Tokugawa shogunate in Japan, succumbed to the pressure of a superior civilization and became colonies or protectorates of Western countries. The